It is no great secret that human beings are not particularly anxious to address painful realities.
It is getting very, very, very hot in here. So don't take off all your clothes. Maybe let's save the earth. In this video, I'm going to break down just the record that has been broken. It's wild. And then I'm going to get to a clip from Bernie Sanders, and he has a really good framing around, the human inclination to not do anything, which I just find it's interesting to hear that from him. In not those exact words, but you'll see. And then, I don't know. I got information here, okay? But I'm going to try to make this as entertaining as possible because, look, this is climate change. Let's be real. This shit boring. There's no way around it. This is a boring topic. This is why these sorts of videos, people don't often click on them. It's not only just boring because science can be boring. It's also just, it can often feel like there is very little that we can do as people. That said, it is very important, I think, to be aware of this ongoing problem and the need to address it. So let me start by the record that has been broken for 4 days straight. This from Axios here. Earth saw hottest day yet Thursday, the fourth straight global record. 4 days in a row, breaking the hottest record on Earth. So daily global mean surface air temperatures, we're looking at here July 3rd to the 6th, were the warmest days on record, crossing 17 degrees Celsius. You can see the red line here just shooting up. This is not even a consistent projection here. We're talking about this is way off the grid. Now, there's a reason for that. This isn't simply because of man-made climate change, though it is, of course, a major piece of this. But I do want to give you the full context. From the Washington Post here, showing you just how crazy this is. These data tell us that it hasn't been this warm since at least 125,000 years ago, which was the previous interglacial. Seppi, who's a climate scientist, said, referring to a period of unusual warmth between two ice ages. 125,000 years. Let's be clear, this is a serious issue, but it's almost comical, the kinds of records that are being broken here. Going to just how important it is to address this problem. And oftentimes these sorts of issues, this issue is put on individuals. Look, do what you can, of course. Make sure you turn your lights off in your home. Try to eat less meat. Like, there are various ways that you can try and combat this. Try and use public transportation if possible. There are various ways that you can, do your part as an individual. But this is not an individual problem. This is a problem of massive corporations, the wealthy, and politicians unwilling to challenge that power. That is the central problem here. Now, more from Axios. The data comes from a computer model run by NOAA's National Centers for Environmental Prediction, displayed via a University of Maine climate data website. And on that point, just to be clear about the data, while the data only goes back to 1979, studies tracking the planet's climate history further back in time show it is likely that these daily global average temperatures are unprecedented in the context of human history. The global heat records reflect the influence of a natural climate cycle as well, with a strengthening El Niño event in the Pacific Ocean. El Niño tends to cause global average temperatures to climb on top of human-caused global warming. The oceans absorb about 90% of extra heat from climate change, and during El Niño, some of this heat is released back into the atmosphere. So just to be clear about the data and the wild spike we are seeing here, this is, El Nino does play a part here as well, in addition to global warming. But that doesn't excuse the impact of human-caused global warming and what we can do in that. Obviously, there's only so much we can do about natural events. But in terms of what we can do as humans, as a society, there is a lot more to be done. Now, I want to get to a clip from Mr. Bernie Sanders here. And I watched this whole video. Of course, he goes over a lot of the impacts of the climate crisis on extreme weather events and goes to specifics on that. But near the end, he talks about just humans' unwillingness to deal with things. I just find it sort of a interesting change to hear him kind of address this part of it, but it's well worth a listen.
It is no great secret that human beings are not particularly anxious to address painful realities. That is true of us as individuals. It is true of us as a society. This is especially true when it requires taking on powerful special interests like the fossil fuel industry and their endless amounts of money. But this time, we must act and act boldly. Our Earth is warming rapidly. We see this every day in every part of the world. Drought, floods, forest fires, and extreme weather disturbances are increasing. We see this every day in every part of the world. Hunger, disease, and human migrations are increasing. We see this every day in every part of the world. Instead of denying these obvious realities, instead of doing the bidding of oil, gas, and coal companies, instead of fomenting a new Cold War with China, members of Congress must develop an unprecedented sense of urgency about this global crisis.
So, a couple things on this. I love how Bernie Sanders frames this discussion about what Congress must do. This is not about the individual, because again, there is only so much individuals can do. We've been told to death about what we can do. A lot of us are already doing those things. This is a societal issue, a worldwide issue, and the only way to properly address it is by politicians, by governments getting on board with some serious changes. When I was doing research for this video, I just looked up, because I was curious what would come out of this, how to combat climate change. If you search in Google how to combat climate change, this is what you're met with. It's a bunch of individual actions, like save energy at home. And they take this from the UN, but the UN has also been very clear about what governments should be doing. But instead, their focus is, not on political action. No, save energy at home, turn off the lights, walk to work, eat more vegetables. So it's all about individual actions as opposed to, hey, rally around, organize, put pressure on governments to address this issue in a serious manner. And I also love how Bernie brings up there how humans have this unwillingness to address painful realities, which is true. Of course, it's true for all of us in many different ways. But this is a painful reality that we cannot ignore. And again, that isn't about the individual actions, which of course I still encourage those. No reason not to do those. But it's about our willingness to put pressure on those in power to do something about it. Now, a couple last things here from the Washington Post. In the U.S., 57 million people were exposed to dangerous heat on Tuesday, according to the Washington Post Extreme Heat Tracker. At the same time, China was gripped by a sizzling heat wave. The Antarctic is hotter than usual during its winter, and temperatures in the north of Africa reached 122 Fahrenheit. An analysis by the Post of more than 1,200 scenarios for climate change shows some 230 different paths that would leave Earth below 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of the 21st century. The best case scenarios, however, require the world to go well beyond any net zero goal for fossil fuel emissions and to begin removing more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere than it puts in. Quote, "The solution to the problem is actually rather simple," Allen said. "Capturing carbon dioxide, either where it is generated or recapturing it from the atmosphere and disposing it back underground. If we did this, we would definitely use much less fossil fuels." Congratulations for making it over 9 minutes into a video about climate change. I am wearing this ridiculous top, exposing way too much. By the way, the rationalnational.com/merch, that's where you'll grab one of these. But one last thing here, this is, again, a topic that I completely understand is hard for a lot of people to sit through. It often feels like what can we do, right? It's What can we do? I think that's a very fair question. I don't think there's a lot of clear answers for individuals. You can do your individual actions, nothing wrong with that. I do. But when it comes to what actually needs to be done, that's when we get to pressure on governments. That involves organizing. It involves a lot more than just turning off your lights. But I do want to just leave you with our beautiful Earth. Look at this thing. Look at this. I want my child to be able to live on this planet and live a full, happy life. Even if you don't have kids, I would hope that you would care about the future of humanity. And you know what? Let's even put that aside. Let's just pretend you're completely selfish. Who cares about the future? This is stuff that is impacting us now, and it's going to continue impacting you for the rest of your life when it comes to extreme weather events, when it comes to droughts, when it comes to food shortages. There is a whole number, a whole variety of ways that climate change has already impacted us. All we want is to mitigate those sorts of disasters. We want to be able to extend humanity on this earth for as long as possible. At the very least, try and be engaged. I know it's tough. Try and be engaged a little more in this topic. And it shouldn't have to take me taking off 3 layers of clothing for people to get to the end of this video.